This is the Open Floor NBA podcast where we talk about the league and all the big stories going on in it. On this episode, we are going to get into the Lakers and the Timberwolves. We're going to talk a little Knicks and Pistons, the Bucks, maybe on the brink of something big happening potentially in Milwaukee. Joining me, as she does every week, from Fox Sports 1, All the Smoke, Monumental Sports Network, and of course this show, Rachel Nichols. Hi, Rachel.
Hello, sir. Long time no see. It's been, 12 hours?
At 10, 11 hours. We were both over at Crypto watching the Lakers kind of, sort of get back into the series. We're going to get into that. That wasn't the prettiest of games. I did want to start, Rachel, though, talking a little bit about the Athletics player poll, which came out this week. And it always has some interesting responses. Good on the writers for the Athletic. That's a great marshaling of resources with so many reporters working there. I like that they do this. They do an anonymous player poll, get roughly half the league, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little bit less, to respond to questions anonymously. Some of them are benign. Some of them are pretty obvious. They asked the players who should be the MVP. Shea had more than 50% of the vote on that. The Celtics are the title favorite. Wembanyama is the future face of the league. There were some spicy ones in there, Rachel. And I thought this one was interesting. Tyrese Halliburton, the most overrated player in the NBA. I want to get your take on that, but I want to play Rick Carlisle's rebuttal to this player poll because Rick Carlisle, the coach of the Pacers, was not happy to see his guy at the top of that list. Take a listen.
I heard about this, and the other guys on the list were Jimmy Butler and Giannis. All right, and I want to see the guys' faces that voted those guys. I want to see the faces of those guys. All right, this is a poll. Not everybody even answered in the poll. All right, guys were able to answer if they wanted to. They were asked on camera or with a microphone. The whole thing's okay, and it's just it's really a shameful thing. It's just a shameful thing. All right. Jimmy Butler would be a finalist for MVP if he had gotten to Golden State a month and a half earlier. I mean, what that guy's done. And Giannis, are you kidding me?
So Rachel, Halliburton just catching strays from NBA players. He seems like a pretty nice guy. He was a member of the U.S. Olympic team. Really good player, all NBA caliber. Had a great year last year. They went to the conference finals last year. Why do you think he's the target of the ire of so many players?
Well, I think this is interesting, and I agree with you that it's great the Athletic does this poll. I like the polls. The problem is, and by the way, they are very transparent about it in the article, they couldn't get every player to answer every question. First of all, a bunch of players, as you pointed out, more than half wouldn't participate at all or weren't asked or something. So you're only dealing with half the league. And then for a lot of these questions, again, to the Athletic's credit, they're putting up how many people voted. So in the most overrated player question, they only got 90 guys to answer the question in the first place. And then if you look at the percentage who voted Tyrese Halliburton, and you divide that and multiply and do all the calculations you would do to see how much is that out of 90, it's 12 guys, Chris. So there are 12 guys out of the 450 guys in the NBA who say that Tyrese Halliburton is the most overrated player. This is the pettiest league on earth. I could definitely get 12 guys on any team to point the finger at some other team and say, that's the most overrated player. I mean, I just think it's a great headline for people who want clickbait. Obviously, it gets people riled up. I think it's a little bit of a shame only in that Tyrese Halliburton is one of the nice guys in the league. And in fact, has good humor when he's selected for something but not featured. He was on Team USA. He did not play at all in the competitive matches. And he tweeted afterward, he said, it's like not doing any work on the group project, but still getting an A, right? Like he has a sense of humor about this stuff. And I think it is a little bit of reaction to the Olympic thing. A lot of different players could have gotten that sort of quote last slot. And there was angst over Jaylen Brown not making it and maybe political reasons and all the stuff that I think that there maybe touched a nerve with some guys. Well, how come he got it? How come he did it? Why do people think he's so great? And again, it's not a lot of guys. It's 12 guys. So I just think I appreciate Rick Carlisle defending his guy, but I think we got to be careful. And I will say that if the Athletic does this again, and I hope they do, if they really get that few players responding to a question and it's really as inflammatory as who's most overrated and it's 12 players, I think they have to make a bigger deal of that in the article. Hey, we got less respondents to this question. That translates out into 12 players. I just think it's a shame because now Tyrese is being labeled with something that we don't have any evidence most guys in the league think of him.
I'm actually surprised they couldn't get 13 guys saying Rudy Gobert was the most overrated. Because not that I think Rudy's overrated, but he's such a polarizing guy. And there's so many players that don't really seem to like him very much. I don't get it. He seems like a perfectly nice guy. He's obviously a great defensive player, but there's a lot of people in this league, Draymond Green, Luka Doncic, among others. Saw Austin Reeves kind of at the in the second half of this game the other night, basically saying he can't guard. Like, there's a lot of disdain for Rudy Gobert. I'm surprised that he wasn't kind of the overwhelming guy there. But I guess there might be more people than we think that think Rudy's ability to defend the paint is worthy of keeping him off that list. I don't know.
Or it might just be the 12 guys they happen to get an answer from. I mean, that's the thing. I just think we got to recognize the randomness of this and sort of include that in the conversation when we talk about this. Again, I know it's not as clicky and it's not as, whatever, but someone is unfairly getting dragged for something that, a handful of guys or two handfuls of guys think is true is a little bit, I don't know, it's a little weird to me.
The one response that I liked that got a decent amount of responses was who is the player you are least likely to want to fight. And for like the 8th year in a row,
right,
James Johnson gets the overwhelming amount of votes. Now, for people that don't know James Johnson, and I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that don't know, he doesn't play. Like, he's been on the Indiana Pacers for a few years now. He's basically an assistant coach. But this is one of those things where when I saw the poll, it lines up with all the conversations I've ever had with players around the league of who you wouldn't mess with. Like years ago, and maybe it's just an Indiana thing, it was like Dale Davis, Antonio Davis. Like those were guys you didn't want to mess with. Charles Oakley was on the list of guys you didn't really mess with. Bill Laimbeer, if you want to go back even further, was one of those guys you didn't really want to mess with. Like James Johnson, though, year after year, is widely considered by most of the NBA as the guy you don't want to mess around with. For context, he has an MMA background. He's generally a tough guy. But there have been a couple of moments, Rachel, that we've seen anecdotally where things have kind of busted out around the Pacers bench. And like guys have been cognizant of where James Johnson is on that bench. Like they're not messing around with James Johnson. This is a real thing, isn't it?
Totally. And by the way, you mentioned it. He has an MMA background. He is a literal fighter. And most guys in the NBA, it's like, slap fights most of the time. So I think these guys know what they are qualified for and what they aren't. And it is not mixed martial arts. So stay away. Smart gentlemen, stay away.
You know what I'd like to see added to this poll in future polls is the opposite of that. Like, who's the guy you want to throw down with? Like, and that's another one I think Rudy Gobert would probably win. Like, I think there's a lot of guys out there that want to.
He's a large man, though.
He is. That doesn't really stop smaller guys kind of from going at him. I kind of wrote about this a little bit about this earlier in the week, but like Luka seems to have this obsession with humiliating Rudy Gobert. It works out sometimes. Sometimes, as it was in Game 2, it could work to the detriment of the Lakers. But he seems to have a thing for Rudy, and I think he'd be pretty high on that list. You're right. He is a 7-footer. I've seen Rudy box a little bit too. Maybe he's getting better at that. So. I don't know, but I think he'd be pretty high on the list. I don't know if you have someone in your mind that you think of like that maybe guys would want to go at, but I would love to see that added to the poll for next year.
Only if they say how many guys answer. So we don't get
that's true too.
I mean, for me, I think I compare this to the NFL poll, the anonymous poll we get every year about the NFL, and that's more about organizations. And as I said, no one's more petty than NBA players. No one. So you're getting a lot of personal agendas in this poll, the athletic poll that happened in the NBA, and that's probably baked into any poll in the NBA that talks about players. I think the NFL poll is so interesting because it talks about organizations. Who is the best locker room? Who takes care of the players best? Who is the best training staff? List goes on and on. Who has the best fans? Stuff like that. And that stuff matters to guys a lot. And it's a good tip-off where free agency brain power is among players of like, oh, I want to go to that organization, that kind of thing. And the NFLPA is the one who administers that and makes it public. And maybe you do have to have the Players Association do it so that guys actually answer. And as you know, we mentioned with the Athletic, they don't get full participation. But I would be very interested who, you know, the most popular and unpopular owner is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't think the Players Association is commissioning any questions on who's the most overrated of their bunch. I think they'd want to keep it all positive. They'd probably participate in something like that, but they want to keep all that pretty positive. All right.
Yeah,
Speaking of
the
positive,
the NFLPA does it so they can keep the teams honest. They do it
That's
because
true.
it's all criticism of the teams, and they want to hang out to dry the teams that aren't investing in player facilities. And I think the NBAPA might want to do that. I don't know.
yeah, I guess the way I'd frame it is they'd want input into what kind of questions are going out there. They're not just allowing reporters to
Yes.
ask the questions they're most interested.